and we're going to go over this little 4-gamer. Man, I'll tell you what, we always talk about how to get different, and there's been a lot of good suggestions in Discord just about different people play different angles, especially with the Celtics. I have a hard time though getting away from some of it's the Lakers chalk. Like I really think you have to play at least 2 of them on a 4-gamer. I really don't know how you're going to avoid that. I think 3 is like the number that I like the best, but I think you could certainly play. You could argue for more. I have them ranked right now. Well, Wood makes sense, but I actually think that it's weird that Hayes at lower ownership is so much lower owned. So I'm actually going to play a lot of Jackson Hayes, probably a little more than I do of Christian Wood. I love Rui. I don't really care whether anybody says, "Oh, Rui's going to be too high owned. You can't do this." Whatever. I'm playing Rui in most of my lineups. I am playing Austin Reeves in most of my lineups. There we go. Here comes Sheets.
And any chance anybody I've heard of is playing today or no?
Yeah, we'll see, huh? Man, weird slate for a 4-gamer.
So all the Lakers are out too, right?
Well, just LeBron and AD, yeah.
That's it, just those 2.
Well, I mean, I some of these teams like the Knicks are missing like everybody.
Can you play anybody except for Lakers and Knicks?
I think that you have to try to find a way, but I mean, Philadelphia is the team that I think that you want to get exposure to, like playing in Utah. The problem is the Maxey issue, but there's so you could play Maxey with like Olynyk, and you could switch that to Tobias Harris and Paul Reed if you had those 2 guys late. So there are ways to get different with the Philly Utah game as long as you have. I would just make sure to have 2 guys. I actually think Philadelphia is like almost as much of a priority as much as I love Brunson tonight. It's a pretty insane spot for both he and Maxey. And ideally, I would like to play them both, but I am worried about the Maxey thing, so it means I'll have to do the Maxey with the 3,900 guy. But I think the way you're trying to find ways to get different are maybe playing some different Boston blowout angles, or maybe with the Lakers, like the fact that the Jackson Hayes is projecting as much worse than Christian Wood as he is makes it a very easy pivot just to play Jackson Hayes instead of Christian Wood. That's what I think anyway. I also think there's a good chance Lakers get blown out. I hope I'm wrong and they fight. We've seen it happen plenty of times, but it's hard to imagine exactly.
Is there any news coming? We still have news coming from Memphis, right?
Yeah, like Aldama. Not sure how much of a difference it's going to make. I'm trying to think. No, everybody's probable. I don't think there's anything that's going to happen with this. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you could argue for playing some of these guys again. Another team that's missing everybody, but there's just so much to choose from. It's hard to go any other direction. I kind of like that one very basic pivot of literally playing Jackson Hayes over Christian Wood and getting different, at least in one spot, in a major way.
Tobias Harris, Paul Reed. Maybe I go back to playing Mo Bamba.
Definitely not the worst idea. I wish, in a funny way, this Lakers things didn't happen, Sheets, because I was finding myself getting to the Mo Bamba thing. I was into it. What you can do though is maybe you could double play those guys. You know what I mean? Maybe you could play Bamba with if you play Bamba, you play him with Wood. Yeah, I mean, it also gives you flexibility. You can decide later on if you have Bamba and one other player in the late game, maybe Harris or something. You could change off of that to a little chalkier. I mean, if you lose Oubre, then maybe you play. I'm sorry, if you lose a Maxey, maybe you play Oubre instead, and KJ Martin. I don't know. There's just different things you could do. Actually, you wouldn't have to go that far. I just wish Bamba was a little bit cheaper because I definitely would take some shots there.
Meanwhile, we got Anunoby out again, so I'm going to print my Josh Hart rebound money.
Yeah, Grimes is out too, by the way.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
They have 5 people.
They got and that's the other one. Like you got Miles McBride as a potential play tonight.
Yeah, sure.
I think that makes plenty of sense, but I'm going to roll with the hits or whatever. It's they're playing Indy. It's going to play faster. I actually do like McBride. I just don't really know what lineup builds you're getting to where you need that 3,100 exactly. Because the only time I find myself needing those 30 whatever 100 players, from these games are basically the Philadelphia, like we're talking about Pritchard, and Brendan saying this. I actually think Pritchard is in a good spot, and there is a good blowout potential. I will mention that Boston has more guys available than they've had any day for the last month. But if there's a blowout, but the problem is then how can we argue for Pritchard over the potential upside of McBride versus Keontae George? Potentially, there's rumors about him, what's it called? Getting more minutes. I don't know, man. It's a tough one. So it's just a matter of, I think you're playing mostly the chalk and you're trying to get different in a couple spots. And I happen to like those spots. And I like, look, the Utah stuff, as much as I was against it early in the day at high ownership, now with lower ownership, I think that it makes perfect sense to run a little bit of that later game, see what happens, but just make sure you do it in a way that makes sense financially. And I think it's pretty easy to do because of the pricing of the players. So Jackson Hayes and that are my big ideas.
It's rough.
I mean, right now I have 100% Reeves, 100% DiVincenzo, 91% Hachimura. Then I get down 61% Tobias Harris, 50% Josh Hart, 55% Brunson, 50% Hayes.
My current builds have like 97% Wood.
Exactly. Everybody's going to play Wood. And I'm just thinking that before everybody commits to this, we have a starting center and we have Wood, who's got all kinds of volatility in general. Now, it makes sense. He's more productive per minute, all these things. But I'm just going to play Jackson Hayes. I'm going to play some Wood, don't get me wrong, but I'll have one of them in every lineup. But why wouldn't we play the guy who probably mops up also in a blowout? In fact, I
agree with that.
You're talking about 10 times the ownership on one guy versus the other, maybe even higher.
In a stupid game that could be a 30-point game.
Exactly. And that's sort of the issue as it comes to the Lakers. I think a great tournament play, again, the problem is there's just other values that make too much sense for this to make sense. But Max Christie is someone who no one's brought up from that Laker game. He's 3K minimum. He may end up getting a bunch of blowout running. He may play well at the end of the first quarter and end up playing 30 minutes, with the way the Lakers. We haven't seen very much no AD, though, LeBron this season. So we kind of have to, take a little bit of a guess on some of these potential rotations. There's also, by the way, I want to the fact that Cam Reddish is out is no big nothing either. It does improve things for Hachimura and I think for Max Christie and Christian Wood as well. But Max Christie is the one that no one will play, and I'm just Max Christie, McBride are the other guys I considered that low ownership. Pritchard I considered, but I like these guys a little bit better. Meanwhile, I'm wondering why I took Thomas Dietrich out of my lineups after his collapse last week, and I just thought it was going to carry over after I talked myself out of it, man. I had a bunch of Thomas Dietrich, and man, he's going nuts today. Sorry. Anyway, so yeah, it's just I think it's just a matter of filtering in those those 6 variable plays with your 10 core plays, and I think that using the McBrides, all those guys, the McBrides, the Max Christies, anybody from Utah, basically. To go with the chalk, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Who's it's up here already, but if you remind me, who's starting for the Lakers? Russell Reeves. Is Hayes starting?
Yeah. That's the only starting lineup we have as of this moment.
Right.
But you know what I wish you could do? I wish you could go back to the first 3 weeks of the season or month of the season and give us some of this value. You know what I mean? We don't need it all at once. It's like when your team hits 9 home runs in one game or something like that, and they win by 18. We don't need them all right now. Let's spread it out a little bit.
Yeah.
MJ is asking a very good question, and the answer is definitely going to be yes for me. Does D'Angelo Russell is fading him the most logical fade of the chalk? Yes, I think he is, of the Lakers chalk. I also think that there is a chance he puts up 60. So do with that what you will. Like, I think he's got an insanely wide range of outcomes. It's very hard for me to picture him just going into Boston and going nuts on his own. He's also going to have Drew Holiday on him for the most part. Or Derek White. Either one is no picnic. And that's why, even though I have Reeves, at least Reeves is 1,100 cheaper and probably would get a little more extended blowout run maybe than Russell. But yeah, that's the way I'm treating it. I actually am surprised that Russell's ownership is projected as high as it is. I'll take the under on like, you got him at like 40%. I think he's probably going to be more like 20%. Brendan loves Jared Allen. Brendan, so explain like just so you know, like I've heard a lot of this, like, oh, we should play what's his name, Niang now because Mobley's out. We should play Jared Allen now because Mobley's out. Mobley's been out for like 2 months. Nothing is different, you know. Just remember with that play. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. He certainly makes sense. He's actually projected to be pretty popular because there aren't that many guys to spend up on. But I don't see anything like on its face that makes me go, oh, I have to play him. I guess Memphis is a bad rebounding team. That's a good thing. He could definitely have a game, but just don't do it just because you saw Mobley was out today, because people tend to do that a lot in basketball if you're not keeping up with it. But Mobley's been out for every day. Yeah, the matchup's good. I have no problem with the Allen play just on its face. I just wanted the reasoning. You know, we try to talk about process and things you think about, and that's just one thing that I always feel like people tend to overreact to those kind of news pieces when that's actually been the situation for a long time.
Oh, the Jared Allen, that one.
Yeah. And it's weird because we need to spend money on people, and look, they're not going to mess around with Halliburton. So I almost don't even want to say this out loud, but I don't know. At some point when these minutes trickle up, I have a feeling it's going to come as a surprise, just with the way that Carlisle coaches. And it's just another thing that occurred to me as a way to get different. Again, it's not right. You're talking about it. If you're playing the 150, maybe you put him into a couple, but just throwing it out there, you might see it out of nowhere. And then you also might see him put up like 50 in 28 minutes, which we've seen before. It's not ideal, but it's hard.
I don't know about that matchub though. I mean, the Knicks, they're at everybody. I mean, it's, you know, who knows.
The only thing with about the matchup though is that I would just say with the Knicks without Randall, who slows them down, like is there one guy the biggest slower down, and then also the Indiana when they play with Halliburton doesn't really matter as much how the other team plays, because they play so fast, they sort of force you into it.
That's true.
Steven Adams traded to Houston. That's a sad thing that happened to
Steven Adams. He's still in the league.
Steven Adams was like one of the best players in basketball. Like he was the best. He's the best offensive rebounder in basketball.
But not now. I mean,
he was freaking awesome. No, but he's just been hurt. He was the reason for Memphis's demise. Remember, Memphis was the second best team in the West, maybe in the NBA. And Steven Adams, oddly enough, started their whole downfall. But yeah, he's not old either. He's like 29 or 30 years old. He's just a big guy who gets hurt. Do you want to know a crazy stat though? A guy who plays. So the player, guess who leads the NBA for guard? Look, I'll just say it. The guy who leads the NBA in offensive rebounds as a guard is Russell Westbrook, who has played less than half as many minutes as everybody else beneath him, and he's way ahead of all of them, which is pretty crazy. In half as many minutes, he has more offensive rebounds than all of them. Thanks for the love, Jolly. Guys, keep firing in questions because I talked about what I was doing at the beginning. Sheets is running through his stuff.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have all this freaking Christian Wood. I don't know what I'm actually going to do with it.
Maybe get that minimum 25% of what's his name?
Amba?
No, the guy who may outscore him at the same position on the same team,
Jackson Hayes, right? Who's actually starting?
Yeah.
What are the prices?
Oh, look at this. Pingalore just posted, and look, this has officially become news. It's funny. We talked about this earlier in the day, and I've heard it on every show that I've listened to today as well. And I hadn't heard it on any DFS shows. But now, I guess Pingalore, who comes and visits our thing a lot, but he's a LA, a KTLA sports guy, says that the Lakers are reaching out to contenders for a LeBron trade.
There you have it.
Yeah. MJ's leaning towards Maxey sitting. I would certainly not be surprised by that. That's why I said if you play it, but you have such an easy 2v2. Like literally, you could play Maxey and you could play Kelly Olynyk, who's a wild card play but has upside anyway. And then you could switch to Harrison Reed if Maxey's out. Boom. Simple as that.
Yeah. It almost seems too easy to take Jackson Hayes. What I don't know. Seriously, he's starting, right? I mean, like,
yeah.
Why? I don't know why I made 90% of the other guy. It makes no sense to me.
It's because
he might both, probably not, right?
Sheets, I'll tell you why, because it's the projection.
I guess so.
No, I'm not playing them both together, but I actually don't oppose it. This is the perfect situation where it could hit.
You think so?
Well, because they both might get blowout run. So you could get their both individual minutes and then combine for like the last 6 to 8 minutes, which will just be all of them. Like, I don't know. Pingalore's with it. Yeah, so that's what I've been saying. I think there's a better chance. I still don't think I would say it's like gonna happen for sure, but I definitely think that he won't be a Laker next year, and the Lakers are starting to realize that. And if that happens, oof.
Playing any Jared Vanderbilt? Why are we not playing him?
People are playing him a little bit. He's not a productive guy usually. Like he's out there to defend, and that's it. But he's going to have to do more. So sure, the argument if he was going to be unowned, but I think he's getting the same ownership as Prince, who's 1,000 cheaper or 800 cheaper. Yeah, Vanderbilt I would play if I thought if you play that game staying close narrative too. I'm not playing as much of that narrative myself. I am trying to force in where because I did have 4 Lakers in a couple lineups, and I forced in a couple Celtics. I forced it just because I had like space. I forced in a Derek White. I forced in a Jaylen Brown. Forced in a Kristaps, and played 4 Lakers on the other side. But that's the only way I was getting the 4 Lakers is if I was going to use one of those guys. It's a good matchup for all of them. It's just how long are they going to be in the game? Brandon is asking any love for Neesmith. Sheets, are you coming across any Neesmith?
No, but what's his name is out. Matherin, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't really getting anybody from the Pacers.
So one thing we have to mark is when Neesmith plays in Boston, because he has gone ballistic in Boston a number of times, and he's always played well against them, even when he didn't quite go ballistic. And that was this former team, but especially in Boston, he's had a few games like that where he just goes nuts. But he's coming off one of them. That's just partly why he looks appealing. I have no issue with Neesmith. I didn't get to him. I don't like. I didn't get to that price point very much. But if you want to play Neesmith instead of like Precious, yeah, like that makes plenty of sense to me. I actually like Precious tonight. This is the night I've liked Precious the most since he's been a Knick. Against Indiana. Do you know who else no one is going to play, who actually projects well and is a good play, is Miles Turner. I mean, that's all. Look, all I can do is talk about the pivots because the chalk is pretty obvious, you know?
Yeah.
And Miles Turner has not been getting the minutes. He's been it has not been going his direction. But you want a guy who's 6K with a 50-plus upside? He's got it. Beverly from Jolly. Beverly, I would only if I knew Maxey was out, sure. With Maxey in, Beverly remains he's playable. I would not be playing him. Put it that way. He hasn't gotten there without Maxey except for the one game. And so even without Maxey, I wouldn't have him so high up the list, but he would still definitely show up as better than right now. Yeah, it's fine. I didn't get to these plays, though. I didn't get to that 5,500 range, and maybe it's because I'm so much on the 6K range and the 4K range, but I'm looking through my lineups for 50-something hundred guys, and other than Precious, I don't really have any. Oh, I've got a Jordan Clarkson lineup. I guess I've got that. So Power, the correct answer is like if you're playing cash, Wood. It's a very hard question to ask. I prefer with the ownership discount, the fact that you're going to get, I mean, literally the projection right now has, I don't know if like this is what it's really going to be, but you have Christian Wood projected 55% owned, and you have Jackson Hayes projected 2% owned. That's enough of an answer for me. I don't even need to think long.
That's ridiculous.
I don't think it's going to be as drastic as that, but I think that it is ridiculous, and I get it. All right, Brendan, you just gave yourself away as a non-site member. Too bad. No, I'm just kidding. We'll tell you if John Collins. I'll tell you if John Collins is getting any ownership. John Collins is looking at 15% ownership right now. That there's a lot of fluidity in that. I think it could be as low as like 5, and it could be as high as 15. So I guess not a lot. I want to say though, even though I'm taking Hayes over Wood, I expect Wood to outscore Hayes, of course, most of the time here. Well, not of course, but I expect it to be most of the time. I just want to. I think this percentage and the projections are going to change. I just think it's too big of a gap. I think Wood should be a little bit projected ahead of him, but it shouldn't be much. And it's already starting to come down a little bit. I don't know why people were projecting that Christian Wood would start though. It just makes no sense to me. Do we just stack New York with HPW Tibbs? I don't know what that means. Plays his guys. With how Tibbs plays his guys. Yeah, and we're all playing. I think your basics are at least 2 from New York, at least 2 from LA, at least 1 from Philly. And that's the basic starting point. I think most of the time you're going to find yourself with 3 Knicks, 3 Lakers, and 1 or 2 from Philly. Ooh, that's a great question from Pingalore. I love that question. If you had to play a winner-take-all, so only thing I would love, Pingalore, if you said how big the tournament was. Let's say it was a 100-person winner-take-all tournament. My core 4 would be Jackson Hayes, because it's the most natural way to supposedly get different, although I'm not buying it. I'm thinking Jackson Hayes' ownership is going to come up a little bit. Jackson Hayes, though, as of right now, because he'd be a differentiator. Austin Reeves, I'd still want some chalk in there. DiVincenzo. And then as my 4th, so I guess a super get weird play for a winner take all. Sheets, do you have a weird winner take all play?
What does that mean? I mean
somebody who like if you're playing a winner take all tournament, you would put out there. Like it'd have to
like a zillion people?
I think I'm just pretending it's 100 people, but like if it was just let's pretend 1,000. Oh, 28 people. Oh god, okay, that's a lot harder. Then I would definitely eat more chalk. I still would be the same first 3 for me. My 4th would probably be chalky, probably be Tobias Harris. I wouldn't do it like the core 4 would be very, very chalky if I was trying to play a 28-person tournament in basketball, right, Cheats?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out on FanDuel also. I think I'm going to do the same thing. I think I'm going to force in some Jackson Hayes as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I'm going to answer another question from Jolly. Guys, please do click the like button. Who do I like from the Lakers? That's what I've been going through the whole show. So I'll go back through it. It's in order. Look, I love the Jackson Hayes as a get different if these ownerships are anywhere near accurate. I have a suspicion that they're not. But I like the pivot off of Wood to Hayes. Straight up, I prefer Wood over Hayes, but to score more often, I think it's way, way drastic. If Wood's like twice as owned even as Hayes, I think Hayes is the better play personally. Even though Wood is obviously whatever. I like Rui more than most, probably, actually. The fact that he's not starting may keep his ownership below 50%, which would be nice. I like Austin Reeves next. And then I actually like D'Angelo Russell because I think his ownership is going to be a little bit lower than he's being projected for right now. Then you get to Vanderbilt, Prince, all that stuff. That's sort of the rankings. There's 7 Lakers that I like a lot. And the super large field play is the Max Christie. And for the Knicks, the super large field play. Actually, I don't think it needs to be super large field for the Knicks, but McBride. Max Christie. I sort of like this Brendan's idea of this Neesmith thing. I just had nothing in that range because he's just an interesting way to get a little different. Maybe I play him instead of Rui to get different in that one lineup. I'm sorry, I didn't. What's his name? Precious. I also think it's totally okay to leave like $800 on the table tonight if you want to. I have no issue with leaving money on the table in basketball tonight. There's so little to pay up for.
Yeah, I think if you get to it organically, that's fine. I mean,
yeah,
I wouldn't intentionally do it though. And you could play. Listen, there's nothing wrong with playing Tatum tonight. Like if you play like 4 Lakers.
Yeah, absolutely. He's one of the other Celtics, but I think he's actually going to get some ownership too.
Yeah,
he ended at 46% owned. Was it the night before with the net? When isn't that crazy? It was he and we're like in like all the lineups. Yeah, people are asking about Fournier and Korkmaz. Korkmaz, we don't know what the situation is yet in Philly, and Korkmaz would be further down the list. Right now, I've got Korkmaz projected to play 3 minutes. So I'm not getting into that stuff right now. I wouldn't hold out for a Korkmaz play and hope that things broke your way. There's nothing good about that.
I don't think Fournier is the worst player in the world. I'm not getting into him though, but
so okay.
Just they have no players.
Right.
Is he 3K?
I mean, he hasn't played more than 5 minutes in over. He has played 5 minutes one time in the last month.
And that was when they had no players.
But he played 5 minutes.
No, there was one game where he got in.
He played 17 minutes in one other game this season.
The 16 and the 17 minutes. That's the one I was.
Yeah, you would need at least. I think you'd need like 27 minutes out of him to get there. So I think you'd have to get to that projection. I can't get to it. I mean, remember we used to say
doing it either. But
yeah, I think if you're considering between Fournier, you're definitely playing guys like Max Christie and Miles McBride instead. Yeah. I think we've seen some weird games though from the past, right? Doesn't it feel like there was a game like last year where there was like, but you know what it was, Sheets? It was a Fournier troll game where everybody played him and he played like 32 minutes, but he had like no fantasy. He had like 2 fantasy points, and the next game he had like 50. Yeah, Tripp, you're way up on this one, man. I'm sorry, the Korkmaz thing. Even if he gets there, he has to outdo so many other people. Remember, Embiid has just missed 2 games. In those games, Korkmaz did play 22 minutes in one of them, but that he literally made 5 out of 6 threes to barely get there. Oh no, actually, he got there more than barely. He got 28 fantasy points. Before that, in the other Embiid games that Embiid missed, he played 9 minutes. So if Maxi's out, also maybe he gets the minutes. But even then, he's not even like the most interesting 3K guy on that team. Like, I have no interest. And I have no interest in LeVert, but that play I can get much further behind. I definitely have more interest in LeVert than I do in Korkmaz. But again, not getting to him. Jolly, you asked that question already. Beverly. Yeah, I'm not getting to Beverly. I don't have an issue with it, but you're asking for everything to go right, and then you're asking for him to have a game, and it just feels like a lot to ask for. I like Okoro off the bench with no Mobley and restricted Garland. Yeah, I couldn't disagree on the Okoro thing more. We've had Okoro starting without these guys for months, and he basically never gets there. Like you're going to have an occasional outlier game where he gets 4 steals like he did last game, but Okoro with more bodies back is not to me a good enough reason to try to play him off the bench now that he's in a worse situation. I don't know. I can't get there. Jaren Jackson Jr. Yeah, totally good with Jaren Jackson Jr. No, okay, I'm fine with it. I'm not playing him. I think there's better plays than Jaren Jackson. I'm getting kind of tired of playing him as chalk, and he just literally he's a guy who's played like he's a lock, and he almost never ever gets there. And now he's got one of the worst matchups in basketball. So yeah, he could definitely get there, but I am not going to go out of my way to try to play a guy whose usage rate is insane, and yet he still can't seem to get over like 40 fantasy points at 8,300. It's restriction because basketball shape, Nico. It's Garland on a back-to-back. So they said he was going to play limited minutes last night. I can't imagine on the second night of a back-to-back they're going to go out of their way to play him more. He only played 20 minutes last night. Thanks, Power. I appreciate that. I'm glad I talked you out of Conley. I guess I don't even know which night that was referring to. All right. I'm going to probably go back and do my builds in a minute. I also have to say goodbye to my son.
All right, dude. I will. We'll see you at the top of the leaderboards tonight.
I hope so. Good luck, everybody. Good luck, Sheets.